Hey guys, it's Kevin on the story for Outlander, Season 1, Episode 12, Lallybroch, and I liked this episode. I liked it. I was looking forward to it, and I thought this was a good episode. I didn't think it was a great episode. I thought this was a good episode. And I kind of realized something that when we don't focus on Claire as much and, like, her past, and we focus more on Jamie, it's not as interesting. There were some great things about this episode I definitely really appreciated, but I think it's just because it's been so, Outlander's been, like, on a consistently great streak that this episode was just okay. I thought this episode was really good. The first, like, 20-something minutes I really enjoyed, but then, like, the second half, it kind of crumbled down a little bit. Let's get into this episode, because I still really enjoyed it. It wasn't a bad episode or anything. I think next week's is going to be awesome. I mean, the cliffhanger that this episode gave us was awesome, but let's get into next week, not next week's episode. Oh my god. Let's get into this week's episode, because it was good. I liked it. So, we start off right in Lallybroch. I thought we were going to see Claire and Jamie maybe struggle a bit getting there, but no, they get right to Lallybroch, and we see that there's a horse with Claire and Jamie on it. What I liked about this episode is that we do get to see what happened after Jamie last left Lallybroch, like where he left off, basically. And they come closer into view as the second pass, and since Jamie now knows Claire's from the future, Claire tells him about airplanes, and I really enjoy this scene, because, you know, I like that he's not, like, yelling at her about it, you know, he's being pretty cool about it, he doesn't really have a problem with her being from the future, and basically she talks about how airplanes, as they stare into the sunny sky, and the conversation moves to age as Claire asks how old Claire is, and this is kind of funny when Claire says that she's 27, and he's like, I always thought you were my age or younger, and he does not care about her age, but it makes her crack that when he is 40, she will be 245, which I thought was kind of funny. So they crest a hill, and in the distance is Lallybroch, and Lallybroch, I have to say, looks beautiful. Cinematography in this episode looked amazing, and seeing Lallybroch for the first time since he was taken by the redcoats, Jamie has a flashback to Jack's treatment of his sister, Jenny. And after he sees this in his mind, Jamie's expression darkens, and you can see that Claire can feel his change in mood. And even though it is a ways to go, they dismount and walk the rest of the way. So a lot of this episode does focus on him being worried for his sister, Jenny, and basically, Claire tries to calm his fears and trepidations about returning to Lallybroch, and Jamie tells Claire of rumors that Jack got Jenny pregnant after raping her, and Claire tries to remind him that those were only rumors. He is a little bit worried, though, because he hasn't seen Jamie in such, you know, he hasn't seen Jenny in a long time, so he doesn't exactly know what happened when he left, so he is kind of worried about what could have happened to her. So, they arrive at the entrance to Lallybroch, and Jamie sees the archway and is taken back again to being tied up and whipped there, and you really do feel bad for him. It kind of reminds you of Episode 2 and Episode 5 when we saw, like, those brutal scenes, and taken out of his thoughts by Claire saying hello to a young boy playing, and Jenny comes out of the house and sees Jamie, and the little boy responds to name, and so does the other Jamie. I have to say, I love Jenny's character. She's very funny, she's very fun, and she sees her brother, she drops a laundry basket, grabs her pregnant belly, and she is pregnant. That rumors, they were true, she was pregnant, and she runs to her brother, and he has been gone for 4 years, we find out, and Jenny introduced the two Jamies to each other, and Jamie becomes angry because he thinks Jenny has named Jack, Randall's kid, you know, basically named her kid Jack, and Jenny figures why Jamie's so angry, sends her son away. She actually named her son Jamie, she didn't name it Jack, and a heated conversation begins, and Jamie wants to know who the next child belongs to, and Jenny then insults Claire by calling her a troll-up, when Claire tries to calm the situation, this makes matters worse as Jamie jumps to defend his wife, and Jenny threatens to grab him by the balls to make him stay and listen to her, just as she did when they were kids, and as Jenny begins to explain, we see this man with a wooden leg that enters the archway, and responds to the question and asks whose child it is, and we find out that it's not actually about, the rumors were not true, because this man is actually Ian Murray, Jenny's husband, and Jenny now realizes what he has just said about his sister, and Ian and Jamie embrace, and I like this scene overall because we do see that it's not as bad as Jamie thinks, you know, his sister's not a slut or anything, and I like seeing that not everything was true, because I feel like it just would have been a little bit too predictable had the rumor been true, so to have it not be true, I really enjoyed that. So basically, Ian and Jamie embrace. Ian asks who the woman is. Claire responds, the troll-up, otherwise known as Claire Fraser. While looking partially at Jamie, Jenny does not turn or change her expression, and Jamie tries to apologize, but it's not received well, and as she walks up the steps, Jamie flashbacks again to her being dragged down the stairs by Jack, and it's really hard to watch, and there were some really hard scenes to watch in this episode. So in the living room, they sit down to have a drink, and Jamie cannot let Jack go and asks Jenny what happened with him, and she agrees to tell him once and never again. And I really love seeing this extended flashback. This was really well done, because after Jamie was knocked out by Jack, Jenny went with Jack back in the house. If you remember, we saw in episode 2, he took Jenny and, basically made her his slave and everything. So we actually get to see what happened after that, which I like seeing, because I forgot that we actually never saw what happened there, so I was very happy that we actually finally saw that here. So basically, after Jamie was knocked out, Jenny went with Jack back in the house and upstairs to a bedroom, and Jack smells her head and sticks his finger in her mouth, and he gropes her and makes her grab his crotch, and he kisses her neck, and she takes the opportunity to grab a candlestick and strike him on the head, and it's just really disgusting what Jack is doing. I mean, I've talked about this before. Jack is a monster, and what he's asking her to do, really disgusting shit, honestly. Really disgusting shit what he's asking her to do, and basically... we then see that he kisses her neck. She takes the opportunity to grab a candlestick. She tries to run, but he catches her. He throws her on the bed, slaps her hard, starts to undress, including unbuttoning his trousers. Now comes Jack, and basically tries to arouse himself before sex, but he can't seem to do it, because, basically... Jenny laughs at him and keeps doing it even after he slaps her again and again. And he can't, basically, he's trying to get hard and he can't get hard. And after Jenny finishes the story, she points out that Jamie was wrong. She expects an apology. And Jamie thinks he already has in some way. And Claire corrects him and tells him to apologize. And this gets stares from the servants, Ian and Jenny. And Jamie takes Claire away for a moment to explain that she cannot tell him what to do in front of his family. Because it's not really her place to do that. And... it really is not her place. I mean, his family's there are servants. He just wants to he doesn't want to be told what to do, basically. But Claire's not the type of person that takes no for an answer. She stays silent. She's not the type of person to stay silent, but he says it's perfectly fine to do so behind closed doors. So... they return to the room. There's really, awkward silence and everything, and Ian breaks it by asking Claire where she is from, and basically she says she is from Oxfordshire, but Lallybroch is now her home, and this surprises Jenny. She not expect Jamie to stay with a price on his head, and they explain that a pardon should come through from the Duke of Sandringham, and Jenny makes a snide comment about trusting the English, which is clearly meant as an insult to Claire, because the Laird is back, and Jenny and Ian move to the spare bedroom with Claire and Jamie settling into the master. So the scene changes to Claire and Jamie in the bedroom, and Claire's removed the kilt from her body, and you can see that her shift is still torn from the witch trial, but her corset is intact, and Jamie looks around the room as remembering his parents, and Jamie pulls a sword out from under the bed where his dad kept it, and it's a Viking blade, and Claire identifies it correctly, and Jamie continues to reminisce about his father, and Claire asks when was the last time he saw his father, and basically... Jamie doesn't really remember that, so he starts to remember his time at Fort William, and we see another flashback here. It was a week after his first flogging, and Jamie being taken back to Jack's office. His father, Brian, met him in the hall, and they're getting a few moments together, and Jamie apologized for not protecting his sister, and like any dad would, he says it was not Jamie's fault, and you do feel bad for Jamie, definitely. I mean, he was whipped and everything, and I definitely feel bad for him in that scene. So his father leaves him with a kiss on the cheek, and Jamie sits in front of Jack at his desk, and Jack explains that even if his father was able to get a pardon, it would not make it back in time to see him, and basically Jack tries to give Jamie a break in the next flogging if he will give his body over to him to use and abuse sexually. So this is definitely showing that Jack is bisexual, you can tell, and I kind of like that overall. I kind of like this twist because, I mean, it seemed like Jack was more towards Claire, but maybe he just did that to lure Jamie. That's really all he did. He didn't really care about Claire or, even Jenny. He just wanted to lure Jamie so he can get what he wants, but just have sex with Jamie, which is I mean, he's still a monster, and it's still... kind of disgusting what he wants to do, because of course Jamie's not gay or anything. I'm not saying that gay people are disgusting. I don't condone like rape and things like that. So basically, Jamie ultimately turns down Jack's bargain, thank God, realizing that he would not let the man break him or show weakness, and moving forward in time, we return to the setting of the second flogging. This time, it's more focused on Brian and Dougal in the crowd, and Brian falls to the ground after seeing his son pass out or die from such a flogging, and he actually ends up passing away, which anyone really would. I mean, the crowd, how could even the crowd watch that? I could never watch something like that. I could not watch that, seriously. I couldn't watch in episode 5, and I like that we actually saw his reaction, and we saw that basically Jack killed him because of him being flogged like that, and it was really sad to see, and I definitely felt bad for Jamie because of what happened to his father. So basically, Jenny and Claire sit at the dinner table, waiting the men to join them. It's awkward, and Jenny's not welcoming. The men come in and talk about quartering day, basically like what the Mackenzies did to collect rent because the tenants came to Lallybroch. And it will also be a day of celebration of the Laird's return, and Claire questions how public this is and the risk of having Jamie out in the open for all the locals to see, and Jenny corrects Claire by telling her that none of their tenants would rat out to the redcoats, and Jenny further strains the situation by admonishing Jamie for not visiting his father's grave that night. And basically, the next day, the tenants come to Lallybroch and bring welcome gifts to Claire and Jamie. And Ian and Jamie go inside to start the process of collecting the rent, and it's a happy event inside as well, as everyone's drinking and eating. And it appears that Jamie is not as tough as his tenants look like the Mackenzies, and he's letting some go and paying next quarter if they are short. So outside, Claire observes the father, Ronald McNabb, abuse his son, Raby, over trying to take a bit of food, and Claire takes the boys off his hands, and it's clear that the young boy has been abused repeatedly and is probably hungry as well, and it kind of makes her think of what Jack did to Jamie, and I thought that was kind of interesting the way we compared those two things. So that night, Jamie returns to bedchamber, drunk as a skunk, and after Claire's already gone to bed, of course, he wakes her up and makes a couple of funny comments and gestures, and it was kind of funny to see Jamie drunk, because Jamie's such a, a clean-cut guy, and such, like, not really a perfect guy, but, such more like a kid, that it was fun to see him drunk. And he pushes him off her body, and he falls asleep snoring and a little smile. It's a really fun scene, especially in such a dark show like Outlander. It was fun to have just like a fun scene of their marriage. I definitely enjoyed that. So the next morning, Jamie is very hungover, and Jenny comes at him since he failed to collect rent in front of it, he's in favor of being easy on his tenants, and she's thoroughly mad that Raby McNabb will be staying with them because of Jamie's drunken lecture to his father about discipline versus abuse, and Jenny's just done with Claire and Jamie coming in, disrupting the place, and Jamie retaliates with his position, and Jenny storms out of the room. So, taking a bannock that does not have enough flavor as an ingredient, Jamie learns the mill is not working, and he visits the mill with Claire to repair it. He ends up having to disrobe all but his shirt to dive in to see if something is preventing the wheel from turning, and Jenny arrives to tear into her brother again, but immediately sees a troop of redcoats arriving on their horses, and Jamie services and sees them also, and I thought something bad was going to happen here. I thought, Jack was going to maybe, kidnap Jamie or something like that. I really was not sure what was going to happen, and it kind of reminds us of that awesome scene in episode 5 where we really did not know what was going to happen there. And Jenny tells Claire to keep quiet and to not let them know she's English, and both sit down to cover Jamie's clothing on the ground, and it turns out there's actually a helpful troop of redcoats as their leader officer helps to fix the mill. So not all redcoats are bad, which I like seeing, because this whole time we thought the redcoats are the enemy and that they're terrible people, but here we see that the redcoats are not actually as bad as we thought they were, and I thought that was really well done. So the redcoats also start to disrobe to dive in and get to the wheel to turn, and luckily, Jamie gets to start it again, throws the shirt on the wheel to give it a cause, and Jamie surfaces further downstream, freezing cold, and he's once cupping his manhood and shielding it from his sister's eyes. He turns around, and Jenny's able to see his scarred back for the first time, and she just gets this look on her face. She knows how he got it, she knows what it all came from, and it just makes her recall terrible memories of the future. You really feel bad that she had to see that, and he feels bad as well. So Ian and Claire meet that night in the hallway. She's looking at some of the Fraser portraits, and Ian explains how Jenny is and how alike she is to her brother, and Ian comments on his lost leg, and Claire recounts hearing about it from Jamie, and she suggests some herbs to help with soreness, and Ian also recounts how he became married to Jenny, and it was none of his doing. So I think that's kind of interesting. I want to find out more about their marriage. There's definitely something more to it, and I think that's kind of interesting that we saw that. I think overall that was really interesting that we saw the way that we saw that we found out, basically that basically even though they got married, he'd not really want to marry her or whatever. I think that's just really interesting, especially because at the time there were so many arranged marriages. That's just really fascinating to me. So Claire literally pulls Jamie out of bed to remind him that she married Jamie, not the Laird. He has lost himself on coming to Lallybroch, and his father would not be pleased. This spurns Jamie to visit Brian's grave the next day, and it's a really bittersweet scene. Jenny finds him there, and he ends up collecting the rents and gives them to her. She then admits that she wants to apologize to him because she has blamed him for their father's death, but seeing the scars on his back, she thinks that her laughing at Jack spurned on to take his anger out on Jamie's back, and that's basically why he did what he did. That's why Jamie got flogged and everything, and it was all because of the fact that she laughed and everything. Jamie said it's neither their fault. It is actually Jack's fault because Jack's, bisexual and everything, and basically the episode then returns to the bedchamber where Claire is looking at the north-facing tower that Brock Turok is named after, and the tower is round. She questions him about how it is north-facing, and the door on the north side is Jamie's response, and Claire's beginning to feel like she belongs at Lallybroch, and it is in this moment that we find out that moments that Jamie says he fell in love with her was actually when they fell off the horse on the way to Castle Leoch, staring up at her. Claire responds with, "I love you," and Claire awakens to an empty bed the next morning. I thought that's how the episode was going to end. I thought it was going to end with a cute moment, but no, that's not going to end with a cute moment because she wakes up, she's in an empty bed the next morning, she comes out into the hall, sees 4 men in the foyer, some of which are pointing guns at Jamie. They notice Claire. Jamie looks up at her. Claire looks down to him in terror. We don't know what he did. We don't know why they're there, but something bad's going to happen to Jamie, and I can't wait to see what happens next week, and that's how the episode ends. So, overall, guys, a great episode. I still thought this was a great episode. I thought there were some great moments in here. I like finding out more about what happened to Jenny, and also finding out that Jack was bisexual. I thought that was kind of an interesting twist, but there's a lot to talk about here. First of all, what did Jamie do to attract these redcoats? I'm not really sure what he did. I don't know why they're there. I don't know how he caused it, but somehow those redcoats, Jamie did something. I just don't know exactly what he did there. What Ian talking about how he and Jenny weren't actually, that he didn't really want to marry Jenny. What's that all about? I definitely want to know what's going on there, because that's really interesting. I definitely want to find out more of what's going on in the relationship overall. I just find that all overall just really interesting stuff. I think it's really interesting what's happening with Jack, definitely. I don't know if those redcoats are working with Jack or if those people are working for Jack or whatever, but I definitely find that really interesting. Jack is definitely coming after Jamie. This episode shows he's coming after Jamie, and I know that's going to happen. Definitely, we know that's going to happen. I like seeing Brian's Brian's, finding out more about Brian and how he died and everything. I think that's really interesting, so we'll see what happens there. Are we going to see more about Ronald and Raby? I want to find out maybe if there's more to their characters. I think that's really interesting overall. And I'm interested in seeing what's actually going to happen with their characters. But overall, guys, not really too much to say about this episode. I know this was a shorter review than usual, but this episode was kind of, I don't want to say it was filler, but it's stuff we already know. That's what was really my problem with this episode. That everything we saw in this episode, we knew a lot of stuff. We just found out more stuff in this episode. There wasn't anything that big that happened until the ending. Next week's episode looks amazing. Next week's episode is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see what happens in next week's episode. I mean, the cliffhanger was awesome, definitely, so we'll see what happens. And this episode was definitely very different than any other Outlander episode we've had because it didn't focus on Castle Leoch. It didn't focus on, Dougal and Colum and all of them. We didn't see any of them this episode. And that's because we were in Lallybroch. It wasn't time to focus on them. And I thought it was good that we did that. Maybe take a back seat from focusing on them and focus more on Lallybroch. I think it's a cool idea that they did that. And do I want them to do that again? I don't know. But I think it's a cool idea that they did do that. And I'm interested in seeing if they do that maybe again. But we'll see what happens in the next episode. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Overall, great episode. Still really enjoyed it. Not as good as the last two, probably just because not as much happened. I still enjoyed it, though. I didn't hate this episode by any means. I thought this was a great episode. I just didn't think it was amazing like the last two were. I can't wait for next week's episode. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I'll see you guys in my next video. Also, did you like the difference of this episode? Did you like to focus more on Lallybroch and less on Castle Leoch? I think it's really interesting. My only thing is that there were points where this episode was a bit slow, and I wasn't as into it as I wanted to be. I really wanted to be more into it, but it was a little bit slow to me, and there was stuff I would have wanted more of, and I don't think that we got enough of some things. But I like seeing Jamie and Jenny interaction. I like seeing that overall. I thought they were, cute together to watch, definitely. As brother and sister, I like seeing their interactions. And I like the twist that Jenny was actually, was married, and it wasn't because of Jack that she got pregnant. I thought that was good overall. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed them. And just guys saw this episode. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Orphan Black. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.